couple of things just for opening heads up in terms of warning for the agenda. Roger's told me that we don't need to do the Idaho Falls agreement right now. I'll let him update us on that. So we'll probably skip over item 4 unless there's something further to adopt there. And then also on the item 3 item with the Bozeman contract, there's some updated information from what's in your contract or in your agenda packet. So Roger will be showing what those changes are on the Zoom meeting by window, I'm assuming. So with that, let's go to item number 2, approval of minutes, June 12, 2023. Anybody have any questions on the minutes? If not, how about a motion to approve them?
Wayne, this is Derek. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, very good. Thank you, Derek.
I'll second that.
All right, and then a second from Adam. Thank you very much, Adam. All in favor, or once again, I never can remember on this. Chris, did we need to do this by roll call, or can we do this also?
No, you can do all in favor.
Okay, very good. All in favor of approving the minutes. What was the date again? June 12th? Yes.
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anybody opposed? All right, your minutes of June 12th are approved unanimously. Let's go on to item number 3, which is consideration of resolution UT 23-06 and our contract and project with Bozeman, Montana. Roger?
Yep. So Bozeman, as you all know, we have an operating agreement for that network. We provide some of the function, they provide some of the services. We have a revenue share model with them. We didn't provide any of the financing, so we're not out of pocket anything on this, but this is largely designed to function like our partnership in Idaho Falls has been, where we don't have staff in the city, but they do. And then obviously we have our NOC and customer service and various teams to support that network here. Perform different functions, and we have a revenue split associated with the share of responsibilities. That project has kicked off a little slower than we'd hoped. Idaho Falls has been fantastic. We'll give you more details on that one, but we do make pretty good money off of the Idaho Falls partnership. And so we're trying to create another partnership that's mutually beneficial with Bozeman. However, where things have been delayed, we had, as you all know, there's been especially heavy winter here, and even more especially heavy winter in Bozeman. So things have, the construction has taken longer. As such, the forecast for customers and revenues have been slower and pushed out to compensate for that. What that does is it does make things a little tougher financially for them to mostly from a timing perspective, more so than we still have confidence we'll get customers and revenues in the long term. So in order, as we've kind of sat down with them and our financial advisor and others trying to figure out, what makes sense, what works here, we didn't want to just be out money. So we considered well, how about we, rather than do an IOU or something like that, what if we reduced our fees in the short term, where we don't have many subscribers today, right? The $5 less is what we're proposing per customer, and the revenue share is dependent on customer types and all that. We're on a 50-50, but it comes out to about $12.50 per customer. On average would be our 50% of the share of the residential wholesale revenue. And so we basically say for a period of time, we'd be not, collecting $5 less, so that in the short term of the project, when we're still in ramp up mode, they have a little bit more funds available. Now, we're not just taking that to say, hey, we're out money. We're asking for a $2 additional fee in the later years, and $2 per customer for 5,000 customers, 8,000 customers, as this thing ramps. Ends up being more money than $5 per customer when we're in the early years. So we actually expect this to generate more revenue for Utopia. It's just pushed to later dates. And we're not underwater on this project in any way. We're not paying for this project, but we're just doing work related to the operations of it. So this helps them be able to make their bond payments, fund operations and that during the period when there's not a lot of revenues. However, our assumptions for how this plays out over time are still very strong. It's a great market. Demand is very high. So anyways, that's the purpose for the revision. Really is because of when I say two issues, there was the delayed build out, and also just the progress with the construction contractors has been somewhat disappointing, and there's been some changes there, bringing in a different contractor. There's two different contractors working it right now, but I would say those are the two primary reasons for the delay.
Thanks, Roger. Would you give us a little, just for those of us that don't necessarily remember exactly where these projects proceed, where are we at status wise with them? What does the slowdown mean compared to original expectations? That sort of thing. You and I talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 450 or so customers in Bozeman. You know, we're hoping to have probably 1,000 by now. But the footprints really haven't been coming online. There's going to be some pretty major areas, a couple of footprints of a couple thousand addresses each coming online over the next couple months. So we'll see things start ramping up as more territory across the city can get services. And the lion's share of it coming online is next summer. I mean, a couple footprints still isn't really what we need. What we need is a solid summer construction season next year. However, we do anticipate some growth, and we should be ahead of where we are today. A lot of the problem is like in the construction management, or I wouldn't even say the management of it. The contractors have been frustrated up there, and their progress and the weather have both been contributing factors to that.
How many footprints total are in Bozeman?
Good question. You know, Jeff?
It was originally designed for 15. I think we're going to end up with 13.
13 are slated to be built right now.
13, and where are we at? Roughly
12 and a half.
12 and a half is what I've not seen.
Do I have another number?
Okay, and we're at roughly what, 5 of them complete?
No, I think we're probably closer to 2 complete and 2 to 3 coming online shortly.
Oh, in the summer here, within the season.
Summer. Then next summer we'd see the lion's share of the remaining areas coming online.
Okay, and our original projected completion date was what?
The completion date of the citywide, it was a 3-year build out cycle. So it's still, the overall completion, I think, is not in jeopardy. It's just, it's coming later. Minus 2 footprints. There's 2 footprints that have been kind of cut from the project.
Okay. All right. Other questions from the board?
I mean, one of the things is it's not a city project, it's the Bozeman Fiber not-for-profit entity that serves the area. They don't have a contractual obligation to hit every part of the city. Generally, we like the idea of covering an entire city, but they can be a little more strategic there with where they build and where they don't build.
All right, very good.
The term on this also extends as part of us making sure that we're not taking a step back financially on this. Is this originally had, I think it was a 10-year term with 5-year renewals. So we're going to go ahead and say that we've got another 5 years in the original term. So that's part of the amendment. And that way, you know, as we're saying, hey, the revenue share will probably change over time in the sense that as we increase rates with inflation or consumer price and all that other stuff, we would expect our revenue to come up, but we're tacking on even additional growth there of $2 for the later years. And with the 5-year extension, you know, we're actually ahead with just the rate change, but the extension really ensures that we'll be in a really good position in the long term. It's possible this could be revised again. So I don't want anyone to be completely shocked. You know, as we see where we're at next summer, I'm hoping we don't have to take any other deferrals and things like that. But we're trying to do these adjustments in a way that still set us up for success financially. even though the timing's not coming quite as quickly as we prefer.
Okay, I thought I saw Matt's microphone off and maybe Jeff. Did you guys or anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, and I gotta say, I just got back from vacation, so I might have been a little slow this morning. Was there a number on what the impact was going to be for this year's budget? I mean, I know what the $5 decrease and the less of or fewer of footprints done than anticipated. How are we seeing that affect the overall budget?
We budgeted very conservatively for Bozeman because we're aware of the speed of the build. So we're not expecting it to have an effect on the budget from what's been budgeted.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay, good question, Matt. Anybody else?
Wayne, this is Derek. Jason or Roger, have you got just a quick over and under over like a 10-year period of what your estimates are of the change?
So I just threw a curveball because as we were talking about this, Laura Lewis, we kind of changed the dates with theirs. We're gonna, so let me pull it up here. Sorry, I should have had that up already. The dates we pushed out to the calendar year. Too many windows open here. I think this is the one. No, that's not it.
Was he looking for a dollar figure per year?
Maybe it is. Just showing the wrong thing on my screen. All right. So, yeah, I think he's interested on, what does deferring this money here do to us versus what does it come later? And the problem is it's a little bit of a moving target based on assumptions of take rate or number of customers.
I do have.
You have
Guesses for
Oh. What do you show? How does that affect us?
Give me a moment.
Okay. One moment. Laura's over here doing her Excel magic. So in the packet, we had different dates here. So I'm going to call attention to this and say this is the draft that we want to work from, where we've changed the dates for the $5 reduction through December 31st, 2025. And then beginning January 1st, 2026, goes back to the normal rates plus $2. And then we apply that in two different, you see it repeated because we're talking about a category of residential revenue and a category of non-residential, which is basically business and government and basically everything else, the catch-all for everything that's not residential.
So to answer the question from a monetary perspective, based on what the projected take rates are currently, which was an exercise we went through with Bozeman and Utopia last week sometime. It appears that this year it's going to be next to nothing because I think you pick up 1 month or something at a reduction. Fiscal year 24, the estimate is about 175,000. Fiscal year 25, it hits your fiscal year a little bit different than it does theirs because they're on a calendar year. So the change, if you authorize it through the end of calendar year 25, would mean an impact to Utopia of $336,000 through that calendar year. Again, that's going to get chopped in half because part of it's going to be in the next actual your fiscal year. Your fiscal years don't line up. After that, it's the $2 is about $150,000 to $170,000, but I'm not sure I have the $2 number right in this model. I'm pretty certain like $5.
So, I mean, a more optimistic way to look at it is we'll be getting $7 instead of $12. This is revenue coming in that's not costing us. We're not issuing debt for this. Yes, there's staff doing work on these, but like with Idaho Falls, we've not really hired additional staff specific to that project. It's just kind of been absorbed in our teams. We've had to grow our teams to some level, but it's been very, very efficient, very profitable from us from a efficiency, just kind of blending it in with the roles we have here already. So we'll be getting $7 a customer or 7 something per customer as that grows instead of $12.50 per customer for that period of time. But from an over under, it was the question. Yeah, 100, you know, on their calendar years, 150 grand the 1 year, 173 and no, I'm looking at the wrong numbers.
These
175 in fiscal year, or sorry, that says FY, but that's calendar year, right?
Their fiscal year.
Their fiscal year is a calendar year. Okay, sorry. 175 grand for 2024, 336 grand for 25. She doesn't have the numbers of the +2
Right.
moving forward, but you know, assuming we're at, you know, we were to say something like 8,000 subscribers, 8,000 times $2 is 16,000 a month times 12, $192,000 a month more we would be getting with the plus.
That
Yeah, so that we may need to change those dates and do this $5 thing for another year or so. But for now, this is the dates we're working with, and we'll make sure that we're set up that as they get to those numbers of 8,000, 10,000 customers, we'll get back to the normal share, if not at +2, and then extending the term. You know, 10 years of another $200,000 a year will more than pay us back for deferring the money in the short term. Again, we're not really out the money as much as we're just not getting as much as we'd hoped for.
But we are getting it as much and more in the long term. We're deferring revenue in essence, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, would you go over once again what the change in the dates are, just for clarity's sake on the contract, Roger?
Yep. So today's adjustment is this period of time, which is effectively going back to July 1st. So it's just for our fiscal year. So July 1st through December 31st of 2025, it's a $5 reduction for us. And from starting in January 1st of 2026, that's when we go back to the normal 50-50 split plus $2. So it swings the other direction in our favor.
That goes until October 2036 with the extension.
Yeah, and that goes through the end of the term, to Jeff's point, through 2036. 2036.
Yeah. With the additional 5 years.
Any questions about that?
Yeah, so we're basically changing that term of the agreement for roughly this 2.5 year period now. Would be proposed to go back to the other term plus the $2, January 1st, 2026. So 2.5 years from now. But you were putting a caveat in there in that we might see a further amendment to that. So just be warned as to that, depending on whether they
How
have
we progress.
construction
Yep.
delays or what's dependent on that.
Yeah, it's really a combination of construction, which impacts the installation rate, which then affects the revenue numbers.
Gotcha. Customers.
Oh,
Customers.
And how we perform over. I mean, I say we, it's largely the construction contractors and the Bozeman Fiber folks getting this thing built out that'll affect those timelines. We're injecting ourselves a little more, trying to get things, solve problems, and try to help them through the obstacles they're running into. But you know, we're less boots on the ground, and so we're trying to do what we can remotely. And we're not out so much. You know, our real value comes in the operations of the network once it's built, but the build out is heavy on the construction engineering and the contractors out there doing the work. We're kind of waiting for that to get done.
Who are the two contractors, Roger? Are they firms we're familiar with?
We don't use them here. It's RMC and Excel.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know them. I don't know if anybody else has any familiarity with them. Or other questions? Anybody else on the board further? Okay.
I just had a quick question. This is
Yeah,
Jeff.
you bet.
So, thank you for that information. And just curious, you mentioned some pretty healthy potential subscribers. How confident are we in being able to have that many subscribers coming on that quickly?
I mean, we've revised the schedule of take rates or revenues and all that with Bozeman. It probably get adjusted several times, but the demand is there. You know, if the network was built and people could sign up and be installed today, we'd expect it to perform similarly to, say, Pleasant Grove and Syracuse and these others where we're seeing very, very strong growth. We just got to get the network built, and that's what's holding us up. So we are, you know, if you're saying, hey, do we really think the customer numbers we're talking about are going to be there on the tail end of this project? Yes, absolutely. It's just, we just got to get through the first couple of years and get this built out.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And just for the benefit of the other members of the board, although I don't follow the Bozeman or any other project on like a daily or weekly basis, but I was actually involved with the Bozeman discussions at the very beginning. And one thing I remember in particular about them, and Roger, you can confirm or deny if my memory is faulty here, but like a lot of our other cities and new customers that we've added, there really was not much in the way of incumbent providers. There really, in fact, that was one of the reasons they were looking at doing this. There just were no other providers. And so from a competition standpoint, it seems like it's a pretty wide open field for us. Is that correct, Roger?
Yeah, it was better than typical demographics. You know, their housing prices,
College
income
town,
level,
yep.
education, all those things were very, very good. From a competitive option perspective, they do have CenturyLink, which we see in our cities, and they do very poorly there. And their cable company is Charter as opposed to Comcast, which is not as good as Comcast, as bad as Comcast is. So I would say for our purposes, it's a better market than what we're typically facing from a competitive perspective. But it's not that there's like no options. It's, you know, depending on how awful your standard is for broadband, they are considered served like by the federal government. But the people there are very frustrated, as we see in our cities, and wanting better options. We think we'll do very well.
All right, very good. Hey, any other questions? If not, and if somebody is ready to make a motion to consider for approval, I'd appreciate that.
I couldn't get off mute. Sorry, Wayne, this is Derek. I'll move that we approve the modified resolution extending the dates and differential of money with Bozeman Fiber.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Matt Dahl.
Oh, Matt. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Krista.
Jeff Lemson,
Aye.
Adam Kelly,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Aye.
Mark Christensen,
Aye.
Derek Euler,
Aye.
Brenda Moore,
Aye.
Robin Meekum,
Aye.
Jason Sant,
Aye.
Bob Barnhill,
Aye.
and Wayne Pyle.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Motion approved unanimously. Let's move on to item number 4. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, apparently we're not going to need to take action on this item, but Roger, do you want to give us an update on the Idaho Falls project?
Yeah, so the reason we were looking at an agreement or amendment there is that some of the roles have changed a little bit with Idaho Falls. So we're trying to work through what they want to do. They have their own GIS team. And so they're like, well, hey, you know, we were paying you guys to do GIS, but we are doing that now. So we're in some discussions to adjust revenue there, but we have to some extent, the opposite problem there. Idaho Falls is very successful, very strong customer growth. And so we just, from that perspective, we're sitting down with Idaho Falls and have been talking about how the revenue structure should be divided up there. we do get significant revenue off of that system. We have, I don't know, I've got the charts here we'll go through, but we have the third number of subscribers most out of Idaho Falls compared to other Utopia cities. So they've been very successful. Let's see, let me show this chart here. They're still not fully built out, so they're still growing. They're doing their own builds. You know, it's similar to like Bozeman, where they're responsible for the local work. So they're building out at their pace. But as you see here, the number of subscribers in their city has shot up to nearly 6,000 subscribers. We get revenue from each one of those. It's a profit share situation. We've not had to staff up specifically for Idaho Falls, but it's just something we kind of absorb into our operations. So it's been a nice little financial windfall for Utopia, build a budget for that. We want to be good partners with them though. So as they're taking on some role, that's why we considered an adjustment to say we may, defer some of the funds for roles that they've taken on. When we started with them in the negotiation, it was kind of an a la carte of, you guys do this stuff and we do this stuff, and everything had a dollar figure attached to those things. They don't have a desire to take on our NOC or network engineering or many of the roles. I think the only one really was in GIS, where the mapping and some of the systems side of things. So we anticipate having a good relationship with them for a long time. I think they're happy with it. The only complaint I've really had from them is they'd like more involvement with Utopia. They've always asked us the question of like, how do we get a board position with Utopia? And it's like, well, so we have all this old debt. So we've not really opened the door to that because of our structure of, allowing another city in is a little tricky. Maybe there's a path there someday, but I think we really need to get the debt situation wrapped up, I think, with Utopia if we were ever consider expanding the board. And obviously that's not my decision, that's probably yours, but that's just been the sense that from us is that unless some city were coming in at parity from a debt position, why would we give them parity from a board representation perspective? So, but anyways, things are good there. A lot of customers, and the revenue growth has been really good for Utopia. I'll go into more details on the next agenda item. This is the agenda item we're dismissing, but if you want me to jump into the next item, just to give you an update on the network update. Is that the next one on the agenda?
No, Jason's is next
financial,
on financial
sorry.
update. Yeah.
I want to skip Jason. Yeah.
All right,
So if you want
Jason.
to move on to that.
Okay, so you're ready for me?
Yep.
Okay. Let me hurry and share my screen here. I just have the normal network update that we do. There, I'm sharing something that I might not want to. Popped up. There we go. My financial analysis is not. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. All I have for the financial update today is we do have our June 30th numbers in a preliminary format in. So as far as our projected versus budget here, for the year, we're showing slightly less revenue than what we had budgeted overall if you take out miscellaneous revenue. But we're still pretty close to where we planned on being. Miscellaneous revenue is much higher than we expected it to be, but that's only because we are taking inventory purchased from UIA and selling that to Bozeman and Idaho Falls. So we have some inventory on hand that sometimes we use to help them with their build out, and they pay us for it. So that shows up as both an expense and a revenue. If you look at expenses, we are well over on one expense line, the professional services. That's where we've been recording the inventory that we sell through. I'm not sure that's where I'll have it at the end. But we did a budget revision that's not shown here in our last board meeting that will take care of that. Other than that, we are significantly under on salaries, and that will make up for any underage on revenue that we have, and we're going to end the year slightly better than we were budgeted overall. Any questions about the budget and
Well,
actions?
Rather than starting off with pontification from the chair, as I sometimes do, I'll just open it up right to the board. You guys have any questions?
If not, I will go on and just show you the revenue charts and show you how the revenue is looking. This first one, it shows the bottom line, the blue line is Utopia revenue. As we can see, even that is increasing, and that's primarily due to Idaho Falls that we're seeing that increase. And we're hoping for Bozeman here to help that increase in the short and here fairly quickly, and also Bountiful. So I do think for Utopia, as I look on a go forward, I think that revenue line is about to steepen. And I think that's a very, very good thing. UIA revenue continues to increase, and overall revenue continues to increase. Our revenue position still very high growth trajectory for the revenue that we're seeing. I think Roger's about to tell you that we had the last 2 months have been very good at Utopia as far as sales go too. So that's something that he'll bring up when he goes into the network update. The last chart I have here is just it's for UIA, and this is informational for Utopia, just so you know kind of how UIA is doing. This just shows total debt, monthly debt payments. The very, very top line, the blue line is revenue. And the line below that is the total of all of our debt payments on a monthly basis. So the gap there is what UIA is bringing in. They can go towards other needs of UIA and Utopia. A good portion of that gap ends up at Utopia because Utopia receives a certain amount of revenue per month for each customer at UIA. So that is what I have. Anybody have any questions?
No questions from the board. I would like to, again, now I'll pontificate. This is one of my favorite charts, the UIA revenue versus bond obligation, along with the other chart that shows the combined Utopia and UIA revenue. And maybe it's because it was such a traumatic chart and version of information to be looking at for me low, 10 years ago to 2012, 2013 timeframe. But one of the things I'm always looking at is what is that incline look like from an increasing standpoint, and particularly what's the gap between the overall revenue or the UIA revenue versus what our debt payments are. And if you take a little closer look at that, especially across time, and as we have added these debt pieces, it's always scary to add the debt, but as long as the gap between the revenue and the debt levels has continued to increase, I have remained pretty happy. And we've seen that happen really very consistently, almost from, well, I was going to say from 2013, and that's sort of true, but really when that started taking off was kind of in this 2018 timeframe, so the last 5 years. So happy to see that. As long as we're able to keep the revenue coming in and the expenses under control, we seem to be doing pretty well. So thank you for that, Jason. And again, if there are any other questions or comments from the board, I'd appreciate that. Or if not, we'll turn the time to Roger.
Yeah, those charts looked really good in 2015 when you were looking at them in 2015. It's just when you compare them to lately.
True.
So much better. I remember we used to celebrate when we had $10,000 a month in recurring revenue growth. And
from an increase standpoint, right? Yeah, exactly.
That'd be a terrible month these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've started including the subscriber report in our board packets. So you should have this. This is something you're welcome to share with your city councils, whatever. We consider it largely public. We don't post it on our website or anything, but not something we feel like needs to be protected in any way. So anyways, a few things to call out from this. I try to call things out a little bit with color. So you've got some new things as reached what we consider substantially complete. That doesn't mean every single address in the city is done. It just means that all the footprints are done. But we may have a couple of obstacles or lingering areas to wrap up. But we've moved Pleasant Grove and Santa Clara both into the substantially completed build out phase. So we were like, hey, these are pretty much done. And now we're in rapid installation mode for those projects. We had a groundbreaking and have started construction in Bountiful. That one's especially important to Utopia. A lot of these city partnerships are UIA financed and owned, where the revenue would show up primarily at UIA, but Bountiful is a Utopia partnership. So the revenue from Bountiful will come 100% to Utopia. You say, is that likely to going to be like Idaho Falls or Bozeman? And I'd say, actually, it's probably going to be better. Idaho Falls has built their network kind of at their own pace. They've just kind of said, as funds become available each year, we'll add a couple of footprints. So it was very casual growth, despite you can see the subscriber numbers are very strong for them. Bozeman, we're supposed to go fast and aggressive, and unfortunately it hasn't gone as well as we'd hoped, and so it's lagging. Bountiful, we are overseeing the construction or using our typical construction contractors, so we expect that to be built out very aggressively and would expect the subscriber numbers to grow very fast in that city. So that'll be a really good thing for us at Utopia from a revenue growth perspective. So that's great. We've got great support there, a great demand, terrible competitive options, which is, again, good for us. So we think we'll do very well there. Our number of subscribers, we've jumped up past 57,000 subscribers. This was at the beginning of the month. So, we're a few hundred beyond that now. A couple of anomalies that showed up, I just want to explain. As you're looking at these, you might worry if you're a Murray and say, hey, our numbers went down. If you go to the actual Murray charts, you'll see the total subscribers actually went up. That was just I kind of explained it here. We had some bulk agreements where hundreds of units in a apartment or condo or something like that re-upped or changed their product with us. And for some reason, we had the product categorized as a residential product, and the new one is categorized as a business, because we often sell our bulk deals as a business product to our service providers. What that's done is it made it appear like we did really, really well from a business perspective and really badly from a residential perspective, just because they moved from one category to another. We're trying to figure out how to fix that in our reporting. But I would just say, if you see an anomaly like that and you're concerned about it, to then look at the total subscribers for a city. And I'll just use Murray as an example, because that one hit us the last 2 months. We've actually continued to see subscriber growth in the city. It's been great. It was really just a classification of a group of addresses that caused what appears to be a downturn in customers that actually wasn't. The denominator number of the available addresses, that didn't change categorically, so it hurts the take rate when we're looking at residential. And again, that's something that we're trying to figure out the best way to resolve that. But these, it's not enough to throw out the charts. They're still very good data, but we just want to call attention to the anomalies when they show up. Similarly, Pleasant Grove had an area that moved from residential to business, but the overall growth in Pleasant Grove has been fantastic. So, and we expect that to continue. So you can see here, we've continued to grow in our subscribers in Pleasant Grove, even though we kind of took a flat line there. From overall perspective, last month, the June numbers were the best we'd seen since COVID. We had, I can't remember the exact number, but it was 900 and something customers net growth across all of our stuff, whether that was UIA, including Idaho Falls or Utopia, whatever. The best we'd ever seen in our past was the peak month in COVID of something like 11, I think it was 1199, just short of 1,200 addresses that came on, or subscribers that came on. So just kind of for context, pre-COVID, we were excited about 250 customers a month. COVID hit and we had these insane months of 800 to 1,000, then hit that peak at 1199. Post-COVID, things calmed down to about 500 a month. But over the last few months, we've seen things ramping up a little bit, likely because we've had some really good areas coming online with Pleasant Grove and Syracuse, contributing a lot of addresses and installations. So it's been good, and those are cities that are just just recently coming online. So we expect many months of strong growth in those cities, particularly. Cedar Hills will be good as well, as that's just starting to come online. We had our first footprint there completed just in the last week, I think, and so that's a new one that doesn't even show up on this report because it was after this report was generated. So good things happening. We expect to continue to have very strong months as we've had some of our best territories coming online and available for installations. Any questions for us? Let's see, some of these charts just kind of show your total addresses and subscribers, but it's very good. We'll be celebrating 60,000 subscribers here in the next few months, probably. So good. That's my network update. So,
all right. Yeah, appreciate that, Roger. News from comprehensive news from a build standpoint. Appreciate that. Council, I almost called you council members there. Sorry, board members. Any other questions or comments? All right, very good. You will almost be having a very relaxed and happy July and August. Everybody's looking very summery out there.
If we called attention in a board meeting to Nicole joining the team, I don't know.
We did not. You probably want to do that. Yeah, why don't you take a minute, Roger?
So many of you may already know her, and she's been great. She's worked obviously with West Valley City for many years. We had budgeted for her and had a position identified in our budget for a government affairs or government relations. I can't remember. Government relations position. And so fortunately, we consider ourselves incredibly lucky to be able to get Nicole to join our team here. She is phenomenal. As you know, we've had a lot of need at the legislative layers of things and in our relationships with cities and strategically. Also, there's an enormous amount of money coming in through the state from the BEAD program. And so getting in very involved with the state and the state broadband office and all of those, I think there's going to be enormous opportunity for us to take advantage of that money in those programs. So anyways, having Nicole here, she wears a lot of hats and is very capable. Again, we consider ourselves very lucky to have her, but she's joined the team, and so she's not here as a board member, she's here as a staff. We're very excited about that.
Yeah, good mention and comment, and welcome, Nicole. Welcome and goodbye at the same time from me personally. Also, just a couple of other mentions to that. West Valley has appointed another board member on the UIA side. That's Dan Johnson, our public works department head, who I figured might add a little variety on the board in terms of engineering knowledge, that sort of thing. But I promise you, he's an engineer that can actually speak with people. No offense to any of our engineers that might be with us today. And also the second comment was going to be, this position that Nicole applied for and filled is the same one that we were talking for and had further requests for information from Doug. You may remember from our meeting a couple of months ago. Just wanted to assure everybody that I've been in touch and working with Doug, got him that information. He's off on vacation right now, but he was happy and fulfilled, so to speak, from that side. So I think we're all good. And again, just welcome to Nicole here for the organization. It's going to be great for Utopia and our further expansion and progress as a network. So thanks to her, thanks to Roger, thanks to all of you again from the staff standpoint that work so hard every day, and we get to see you here on a monthly basis. You're doing great things. Okay, with that, I was going to ask board questions, but I see Roger's got another item. Yes.
It's a pretty big deal, so I should have brought it up earlier, but it happens at UIA, but it's good for you. I'm sure you'd all be interested in what happens at UIA, since we're very tied to each other. UIA at today's board meeting did approve an additional bonds to fund additional growth at UIA. So it's not a citywide project, but we have needs for funding additional installations and growth. As there's new developments, there is a lot of things, and there isn't enough. We're doing really well financially and generating cash, but to use the cash to fund those things versus debt financing things that create new revenues would put a real strain on our ability to pay the dividends and other things. And so it does make sense, we believe, and have put together that package for the UIA board to finance our next phase of installations and growth and all of that, just within the Utopia cities primarily, and for business opportunities outside. That was supported unanimously. It was a amount of not to exceed 36 million. Is that the right amount? We expect less than that, but those are parameters, gives us that ceiling. So at that point, with that approved, there's not any expectation we'd be coming to cities to fund any of that. It frees up cash so that we can continue to do future year dividends and even hopefully get more aggressive with those. So.
All right, very good. Thanks. I actually had a note to mention that and forgot to ask myself. So thanks for that, Roger. Okay, any other questions or final comments from the board? And if not, do we have a motion to adjourn for our August meeting?
So
I'll make the
moved.
motion to adjourn. I'll second it then.
Okay, very good. Thanks, gentlemen. Adam and Derek, I believe I saw Matt's thumb move into the microphone or button, I believe, as well. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
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 If nobody's opposed, we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much for your attendance.
Thanks.
Thank you. See everybody.